Thank you. Thanks, Amanda.
Most welcome. Thank you, Charmaine. Hello, hello, everyone. My name is Amanda Hill, and I'm from Healing by Choice. Just wanting to get us into the space in a good way with a bit of grounding. And so I will invite you all to get settled in your seats if you're sitting. Um, if you're laying down, that's welcome too. And then I also just want to always note that in Healing by Choice, we welcome you to show up as you are. And so, as Charnay said, if it looks like being off camera, that's okay. But we also welcome your beautiful faces. You are welcome to sit, lay, stand, walk around, pace, flap, do some stimming on mute. Anything that you need to be fully present and comfortable is welcome. And as we all kind of settle into the space, I'll invite you to get your feet on the floor if that's available to you. And if not, just settle your body into your seat. Get planted, however that looks for you. And then I'll invite us to take a couple deep breaths together, inhaling deep into our belly and exhaling fully with a little whoosh. And we'll inhale deeply, letting the air fill our lungs and down into our belly, expanding. And exhale fully, whoosh. And so for our grounding practice, we're just going to do some progressive relaxation here so that we can really get out of our heads and into our bodies for this time being. And so I'll invite us to start from the top and work our way down. You could give some attention to the top of your head, your forehead. If you find yourself squeezing in any way, just let that go. And then bring your attention to your ears. Let them relax. And you might find that you need to squeeze before you can relax. So bring your attention to your eyes. And if you need to close them real tight, then you can let them go. Sometimes we're holding tension we don't even realize until we do it purposefully. Down to the jaw. Gifting some attention there. Are you clenching? Let that go. And let's bring it down to the neck and shoulders and kind of squeeze upwards and release them. You may find that even rolling them is nice. And then down to the belly. I invite you to squeeze your abs tight and then let them go. Into our seat, you can squeeze your buns real tight and release. Let's go to our arms. Squeezing our whole arms, our hands, and letting that out with a breath. Down to the thighs, squeezing and releasing. Next, the calves. If you have the ability, I welcome you to squeeze them and release. And lastly, down to the feet. Welcome you to crunch up your toes real tight and let it go with a deep out breath. Thank you all for arriving here today. And I will go ahead and I think pass it back to Charnay to welcome us all into the space and talk a little bit about why we are here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Stop the spotlight. Wonderful. And I'll actually share my screen as well. Well, welcome. Welcome, welcome, everyone. And thank you all so much for coming out for this session today. I'm going to just present, and hopefully you can all see the screen. But hello, my name is Charnay Sanders. I serve as the program manager at COAC Detroit. It's a pleasure to be able to connect with you all for this event. We have been really looking forward to this day and just being able to actually partner with the organizations and the individuals that you'll be seeing shortly. But want to express so much gratitude. Thank you so much, Amanda, for that beautiful practice to just bring us all into community with one another. And especially as we're going to be talking about an important topic like today, and really being able to equip ourselves with various self and community care practices. And I'm so grateful and excited that we'll be able to do this, especially right now as we're wrapping up in the middle of the holiday season, just kind of kicking off, and it's just closing the end of the year. So please believe me when I say I do not take your presence for granted. And I truly appreciate each of you all for showing up, not just for yourself, but for like your organization or your community to be able to kind of share some of this insight and practices back with others so we can continue to do this work together collectively. So thank you. Really quickly, this is your first time connecting with COAC Detroit at all. Well, welcome. We are a resource hub for nonprofit organizations, and we are also the host of the Nonprofit Wellbeing Series. This series was really about uplifting the importance of connection between self and community care and really pushing for a culture shift at the organization and sector level. We've been able to host this series since 2019 and have been able to explore an array of topics that you'll see shortly. But we also want to uplift that we also have our Natural Collisions podcast, where we also are having well-being conversations, as well as other meaningful conversations that talks about some of the challenges and opportunities in the nonprofit sector in Southeast Michigan and beyond. So please feel free to stay plugged in. There will be additional resources that will be shared in a follow-up email for those of you who are interested and able to connect with us and also just interested in taking this further. Again, some of the Wellbeing Series sessions that we've been able to do really range from a variety of topics, whether that's cultivating compassion and belongingness in teams or being able to activate a culture of team care. Those are a few of our sessions most recently. But again, we've been able to really explore a variety of topics, moving from like the self to looking at community care or we care, to be able to really see what does it take for us to be able to shift wellness cultures within our organizations. And we've been able to do this work only because of the amazing organizations that we get to partner with, like today, such as Healing by Choice and the Wellbeing Project. So we're really excited to be able to continue to do this work in partnership and sharing some of these resources on our website with the recordings on our virtual resource library. So if there's ever a topic that you weren't able to catch, you can always go to our website to be able to see some of those past sessions, as well as get the materials and resources, because one thing for sure is we recognize that the most valuable asset of any organization will forever be its people. And it's so important for us, for you all to get resources and tools that you can use for yourself and share them with your colleagues in your greater community. So on this note, I just want to thank you all for showing up again for yourself and really being present for this session. And finally, as we're getting started, you just noticed we had our morning gratitude practice, just doing the welcome and reminders. Please take care of yourself during this time, and especially if there's anything that's ever shared that may feel triggering or just may require you to step away, please definitely take care of yourself and do whatever is needed. We're happy to kind of support, and if there's ever any tech difficulties along the way, please feel free to message me, and I'm also happy to kind of support you. But this is just a layout of what you can expect for the session today. We'll be moving next into the actual presentation by our friends at the Wellbeing Project, and then moving into a self-care practice before taking a bio break to just kind of recharge and reset before we move into the actual self and community care practices and learning more about the healing justice framework and practice through Healing by Choice. And then we'll just conclude with a gratitude in closing. We definitely encourage engagement. There will be some polls and ways to just engage in the chat. So please, if there's something that's being shared that resonates with you, please feel free to come off mute and do so. But at this time, I'll actually stop sharing my screen and we're going to pass it over to our friends at the Wellbeing Project. So thank you all, and please give them a virtual round of applause or physical if you feel like it. Thank you all.
Thanks, Trinae. And I just want to say, like, it is a real gift for us to get a chance to be together with all of you today. Right from the outset and getting to know COACT, we've been absolutely in love with them and the work and the community that they host, that you guys host together in the Detroit area. So thank you for allowing us and giving us the space to participate alongside of you today. Maybe we can start by just introducing ourselves, who the three of us are. And I think it might make sense as well just to have Amanda perhaps also introduce herself, just so that we kick this off together collectively, Trinae, if that makes sense. So maybe on our end, in addition to Amanda, we could also put up Silvana and Alexis. And Alexis, maybe you'd be up for kicking us off with introducing yourself. And Silvana too. Alexis,
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Aaron. Hi, everyone. It's very nice to be here with everyone. So my name is Alexis Adato. I'm originally from Venezuela, and now I'm based in Madrid. I've been with the Wellbeing Project for almost 2 years, and I'm the special project manager here at the Wellbeing Project. So that's just a little bit about me, and I will pass it to Silvana.
Thank you, Alexis. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you. My name is Silvana Cisneros. I'm the networks lead at the Wellbeing Project. I'm originally from Venezuela, but I'm based in Kansas City and have had the honor of working with the project for about 4 years and with this think tank since its inception. So I'm very excited to be here today. And I will hand it over to Nanda.
Thank you, Silvana. My name is Fernanda, but everyone in the project calls me Nanda. I was born in Venezuela, but I am half Venezuelan, half Mexican. So the Venezuelan team of the Wellbeing Project is here in this call. I am based in Mexico, and I am networks manager at the Wellbeing Project. So I have the pleasure to work with Shernay for a year or so, and it was great to be in touch with COACT. And I will pass it on to Aaron.
Thanks, Nanda. And actually, maybe I'll pass it on to Amanda, and then I'll just pick it up from there again. So Amanda, would love to pass it over to you.
Peace, y'all. I am Amanda Hill. I use she and her pronouns, and I am calling in from Detroit, Wauwiatonon, which is where Healing by Choice is based. I'll share a bit more about who Healing by Choice is and what we do as part of the latter half of our session today, but I'm really excited to be here. And I just am going to throw out there, because we always say this in the beginnings, again, all of who you are is welcome. So show up as you are needing to. I'm going to do that as well. And I'm going to preface that if you see me wiggling around, it's because I might be riding my little under desk bike. And so I just want to make sure that folks also take care of yourselves in this space. And I'll go ahead and pass it back to Aaron. Thank you.
Amanda, thank you for that. I am now thinking that I need an under desk bike, just for the record. So I might ask you for a tip of where to get one of those. And as part of checking in, I'll just say also thank you very much for the practice you let us in at the beginning. My shoes came off, my feet and particularly my toes are very deeply into the carpet at this moment. That might be a little bit too much information, but my toes are very happy. I'll just share a little bit about me, and part of this is also a bit of framing for what we're about to talk about, and maybe building a bridge to all of us who are together on this call today. So my name is Aaron Pereira. I'm dialing in today from Brussels in Belgium. I'm normally based in Paris, and then I'm Indian, grew up in between a number of different places. So I've spent my life, probably a third of it in India, a third of it in Europe, a third of it in Canada. I'm making it a lot simpler than it actually was. And then I've been engaged in the social change space for about 25 years. And the very beginning of that started in my teenage years, and was partly me being involved in other stuff, partly working on creating new organizations. And with the first charity that I started when I was 19, when I got to about 20 or 21, I ended up getting to a pretty severe case of burnout. And it was something where it took a long time to recover from that. So basically, just to give a little bit of context on this, I got to the kind of place where sound made my skin crawl, where I just felt an immense sense of fatigue that took probably 12 to 18 months to recover from. Eventually to get better, but it was a bit of a scary experience because it's scary thinking that maybe at 21 you've sort of peaked for your whole life, and things are kind of over at that point. I was really glad to recover from that, and then I ended up getting involved in some more social change stuff, got close to the point of burnout, but this time was a tiny bit wiser, and in slowing down and listening to myself, realized that there was a place within me that was crying out for attention. And it was something I chose to turn towards. I just began to feel that there was a sense of sadness that was really present. And it just became really clear to me that it was going to be hard to focus on working on things on the outside if I wasn't really healthy on the inside. And so it started a process for me where I ended up beginning to take 6 months to learn how to meditate, to do talk therapy. By the time the 6 months were over, I realized I'd barely scratched the surface. So I ended up taking a bit more time and then a bit more time. Eventually it became a few years. And along the way, part of what I began to realize was that I had been carrying, and still am actually, in some ways, like this is a lifelong journey in many different ways, carrying a huge amount of trauma within me. And part of that was due to the way that I grew up, the context within which I grew up. Part of that was due to experiences that my parents had had and their parents had had. And what that meant was it was really easy for me to be disconnected from my body. And so not to be aware of the fact that I was getting really tired, not to be aware of a whole range of different things that were going on for me. So I'm just sharing this as framing, like at a very personal level, because the work that we'll be sharing and exploring today is both for understanding exploring how to do this in relation to the change-making work we do, and also for many of us as change makers as well, because we're part of these communities that also swim in many ways in trauma. And so I think it's interesting, just as part of the framing, to realize that there's this personal dimension for us, this personal dimension for the people that we work with, and then really understanding what it means to have that be present for all of us. So hopefully that helps, and also helps create a bit more of a personal context around this. What I'd love to invite everyone to do, given that we've introduced ourselves and been checking in, and now that you know that my toes have been like really squishing themselves into the carpet, I'd love to invite everyone else to introduce themselves in the chat. If you could type in your name, how you're checking in today, if you have a little exercise bike underneath your desk as well, we'd love to know that. But it would just be really great to just see a few of your voices come in as well. Oh, thanks, Amanda. And then Charney, maybe we could put up the start the presentation as people chime in.
Sounds
Jacinda, thank you for kicking us off. We're checking in the chat.
And do you need any support in pulling that presentation up, Alexis?
No, I'm actually happy to pull it up.
Thank you. I was the one that was confused. It's really wonderful to see everyone's voices coming in. I love the people that are checking in is pretty awesome, or people that are checking in with more things going on too. So as we dive into this presentation today, I'll just set the frame a little bit of what we're going to be doing. We're going to be sharing context about the why of this in many different ways. This is a little bit of the framing that I gave at the beginning in terms of the personal aspect of this. We'll be sharing the process and that we've been going through in terms of this work over the last 3 years. And we'll be sharing at a really high level some of our findings with this work. So that really is the hope with this. As we go along through this presentation, we're going to be doing a number of polls so we can get a sense of your voices in this, and so you can help guide us so that we can also learn from you guys as we go through this. And then all of this is going to set the stage for Amanda and her incredible piece of work, which is going to be much more applied in the second half of today's call. So I hope that works for everyone. And with that, we're actually going to dive into our very first poll, which is putting the question out to everyone in the group. What is it that brings your attention to this topic? And that it might just be showing up for another wonderful webinar that COACT is doing, or there might be other reasons as well. So I think there's a poll that's going to be shared with all of you, and we'd love to get a bit of a sense of where people are at.
We see if some results are coming in now. It's about 48%. So I'll just take another moment for people to fill that out. And about 77%. So please just take a few more people, 84, and then we'll share the results with everyone. All right. Okay, I'll start sharing the results right now so we can see. And let me know if they're not coming up, Erin.
That's fantastic. And does everyone get a chance to see this? I hope so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is really wonderful. A lot of people want to deepen their expertise and apply this knowledge. Wonderful. So it looks like we have a group of people that in some ways are engaged already in this. And so we're excited to learn together with everyone here. Alexis, I'm going to pass it, I think, over to you, for the next slide. Or is this me? This is...
Sorry, I didn't find my unmute button, but I'm here and now I need this one. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you for the introduction. So before we get into the research, we would like to give you a little bit of context of how the think tank came to be and how this work has actually progressed throughout the years. So the Being and Transforming think tank actually launched in 2020, and it is a joint initiative hosted by the Wellbeing Project and by Georgetown University. And together, what we do is develop and mainstream new ideas for social change, for social change based on exploring the relationship between the inner and the outer work. So the think tank develops evidence-based research on how an inner orientation of well-being can influence in a positive way to the wider social transformation. We have two main topics in the think tank, and the first one was intergenerational trauma. And this work actually has had about 100 iterations over the course of the years. So to build the case for collective and intergenerational trauma, we drew on very rigorous research across multiple domains. So we went from neuroscience to epigenetics and many other domains. We also convened academics, practitioners, global thought leaders, and a coalition of leading social change organizations from around the world to help us guide this work, including the development of the framework that we will be presenting later on. And this collective work seeks to create new consciousness and of how the trauma in our relationship with the planet can be understood and also engage in our individual and collective journeys towards well-being. So in brief as well, what have we found? So in developing this research, the message has become very clear. Trauma is everywhere, it impacts everyone, and it limits all of us from reaching our true potential, both individually and collectively. This research confirms the inseparable, the relationship, intrinsic relationship between trauma and well-being, and emphasizes the critical role of individual and collective healing to unlock social transformation. Trauma is a universal experience, and its causes and manifestations are very diverse. So there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to healing, but breaking the trauma cycles is possible, and healing is also possible. Changemakers and change-making organizations can play a key role in empowering individuals and communities through their healing process. And there is a call for greater awareness of these impacts and for trauma-informed approaches to social change. So with healing comes well-being, and with well-being comes well-doing. So I will pass it to Silvana now. So
Alexis,
she
maybe, Alexis, maybe I'll just add
Yes.
one thing before we move on, just in terms of the framing. Part of what also became really clear to us is that this is not yet a mainstream perspective in the field of social change. So it's great to be here together with a group of people that are really curious about this, that are also in different ways working on this already. And our work is really about making this a mainstream orientation in the field. So in a way that supports our collective ability to do this work for ourselves and for our communities. And so just to know, like, some of this stuff may seem self-evident to many of the people that are here, or some of the people that are here. And that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And it's good to celebrate that. But also just want to hold space that for many people, for many change makers, for most funders, this is not yet a mainstream perspective. And so it's trying to create a new norm, a new normal in terms of what we understand social change is all about and what informs that work. So hopefully that helps as a little bit of the framing for this as well.
Thank you, Aaron and Alexis. This is our writing team. For the past 2 years, they have been developing the main research paper, which will guide the rest of the work as well. The team from Georgetown University, led by Randy Bass, is a wonderful team. It's comprised of Kendall Bryant, Idioma Nyaka, Duncan Peacock, and Kate Barranco. And we also have Mace Imad from Connecticut College and Cassie Powers from University of Mexico. The way we divided the work is comprised of these different areas. We have the panel of experts, which includes academics and practitioners. We also have the associate voices, which contribute essays and papers on the topic of intergenerational trauma and how it relates to their field of work. We have the writing team, which I just introduced you to, which had provided the main research paper. And we have the Wellbeing Project community contributing and and team. And we also have the entire broader community, which includes more than 1,000 people that have consulted this work, have been informing this work and guiding this work. Some of the panel academics, we have experts from all over the world, which makes this a very diverse group. We also wanted to make it an interdisciplinary group. So we have anything, as Alexis told us, anything from experts, scientific experts, to psychologists, all the way to wonderful artists. So it's truly an interdisciplinary approach to the topic of intergenerational trauma. Here are some of our practitioners as well. It's very important for us to not only look at the theory and the knowledge behind this topic, but also see how we can apply it and how we can create practice-informed practices. So we have this amazing panel of practitioners working with us, again, from all over the world in different areas, which creates this diverse, very rich, diverse, multiple interdisciplinary group. The associate voices, as I said, again, a very rich group from different areas of the world, and they contribute with these essay papers. As I said before, they look at the topic of intergenerational trauma and how it is seen within their different fields.
Thank you, Silvana. So now, to continue, before going into the findings of the research, we would love, Sharnay, if you can help us pulling the second poll. Now we will have about 3 consecutive polls, because we really want to see the temperature of the group, as Aaron said before. So the first one is if you feel that you have a better understanding of where this work comes from and how it was actually brought together.
Thanks, Alexis. And that poll was just launched, so people are starting to take it down. We're about 46%, 50-ish participants have taken it. So just one moment. Right, it looks like we're getting the last few people to take it. So just last few seconds to just wrap up this question. And then I'll end this poll and we can share the results.
Thank you, Sharnay. Great. We can see that we are almost 50-50 on being very clear of the think tank origins and needing more context and history. That's perfect. Thank you.
And for the person that mentioned, or the people that mentioned that they're not familiar with the origins of this work, if you put a few questions into the chat, we'll type back just to respond to that as well. Alexis, back to you.
Perfect. Then we can go to the second question. Question number 3, which would be, do you feel you have an understanding of trauma and intergenerational trauma?
And just to be clear, this is not based on us explaining it. This is based on really what you're coming to this session with.
Victim, that poll was just launched. Let's just take a moment to take it right now. Right, it looks like we've got over the majority. So just take the last few seconds to wrap up your answers to this question. Now in the poll, we can share the results.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, so we can see here that either we have a comprehensive understanding of both concepts, that we have a basic understanding of trauma, but intergenerational trauma is less clear. And then we have a lesser percent on somewhat familiar with the concepts and would love to learn more.
Alexis, before we go to the next question, I just want to pick up on the comment that Lou put in the chat.
Yeah.
Lou, thank you for that. And yes, there are definitely many spaces between basic and comprehensive. I'd also love to just say, like, for the people that have marked basic, the spaces in between, and then comprehensive, what would be helpful for us as we go through this is, and please, this is an invitation to share into the chat, how can this work be of service to you in helping normalize, in helping bring more credibility, in helping create a wider base? So these are the kinds of things that we would really love to understand as we slowly roll this work out over the next 6 months. And so would love to just welcome any commentary as we go along. So Alexis, back to you.
Thank you. And then last poll before we dive in and pass it to Aaron. Are you implementing trauma-informed practices in your work today?
Thanks, Alexis. And that poll was just launched. So just take a moment to fill that one out. It looks like we've got over the majority. So just a few seconds for anyone else who's seeing where they may lie on the spectrum. And then I'll just end the poll right now and then share the results with everyone.
Beautiful. The one that we got more split percentages in each of the questions. So we have 35% of people here implementing the trauma-informed practices in their work, 29 implementing them, but are still learning how to do it effectively. 9% that haven't integrated them yet, and 26% that are not implementing trauma-informed practices. And with that, Aaron, I'll pass it to you.
Super. And Alexis, before we go to the next slide, maybe the thing to really mention here, and part of the framing, you'll see this in the way that we're sharing the work. So we begin to launch this work out into the world tomorrow. And part of what we'll do is share a link for where this work will be going live. But we're taking an interesting approach with it. As Alexis mentioned earlier, there were at least 100 community consultations, with actually more than 100, much more than 100, that happened in terms of like dialogues, conversations, and consultations in many different ways. And so we're going to be putting the work out in phases. There's a first drop of the first part of the work that happens this week, and then a second drop that will be happening in February. But we're doing all of it in a form where we're continuing to invite feedback and input as we go along. And that for us is really, really important, and is actually very different than a typical academic approach, which comes up with things, has an authoritative voice. For us, what we're really trying to focus on is collective engagement and a collective articulation of knowledge and of knowledge around this. So that really feels important, just to know that in terms of the framing. So with that, some of what we're going to share in this is, I think, known by a good number of people here, but we'll just set this as a bit of a baseline, because it's helpful to keep in mind that for some people, this stuff is not actually well known at all. Even something as basic as what is trauma. So Alexis, maybe we can go to the next slide. So there are a couple of different ways that we're looking at defining trauma. And there are two very academic definitions that you can see up on your screen right now. And I think the things to take away from this is they can both be the result of a one-time event, or they can be the result of like an ongoing chronic and systemic issue. And the idea being that this is when they push past, they overwhelm us, our nervous systems, they persist, and we're not able to integrate them. And the way that trauma shows up, it shows up in a number of different ways. It shows up partly in our bodies. It shows up partly psychologically. It shows up in the way that we then relate to other people. It shows up in ways that affect our presence in the world, and in ways that show up interrelationally with the people that are present in our lives, and in relation to our own selves. And then there's collective and intergenerational trauma. And while trauma is becoming much better known, intergenerational trauma, collective trauma, is something that is beginning to enter the mainstream. And this is the part that we really, really want to pay attention to. So there's a part here where, as we enter into this piece, I think it's actually really important to acknowledge that in traditional societies, in Indigenous societies, there's an orientation to acknowledging that effects in our life can be passed down up to 7 generations. And interestingly, in the scientific context, we see that trauma can actually be passed down up to 7 generations. So it's interesting just to see that parallel. And so I just want to really hold space for multiple ways of knowing as we dive into this. So what we mean by intergenerational trauma, what's meant by intergenerational trauma, is when the effects of trauma are passed down from one generation to the next. And the ways that that transmission happens are through our bodies, through epigenetics. We can pass on, for example, higher level, like the ability to move to stress responses much more quickly, to become a whole range of different physiological responses much more quickly because trauma hasn't been processed. It gets passed on psychologically, it gets passed on culturally, it gets passed on sociologically. There's just a whole range of different ways that intergenerational trauma is transmitted. I'm going to try and tell it a different way, as a story of how it gets passed on as well, generation to generation. And a way of telling that story is looking at, I'm going to do this without naming the place that I'm talking about, but there's a place where there was a civil war that happened, and one whole generation went away to war. The men in that generation who went away to war, the ones who came back traumatized, having seen and done things that were truly horrific. They were never able to talk about it. It was all very much locked up. And so their children found themselves silently present with trauma, with parents where there was a lot of silence present for them. And they had no idea why. And what it led to was a context of neglect. What it led to was a context of, also like a number of physiological markers that were present for them. And so for the second generation, what showed up was a wave of alcoholism and drug abuse as a way of coping with the experience of what it meant to be present with parents like that. And then a third generation beyond that, who actually then, in coping with parents who had lost themselves or had really gone down paths that were very painful, found themselves trying to put themselves together again. And so it starts a cycle where you can see how these things pass on from generation to generation. And so if you look at like what's here on this page, we talk about how vicious cycles can start And Alexis, I think there's actually a visual for this, right? That's the next slide, is it?
I put it up, Aaron.
It's 2 slides later, slide 17. Thank
Yeah.
you. We talked about how there's like vicious cycles that can start, and I just want to be very careful about the words that are here, and also defining the words that are here, because like some of these words can be a little bit tricky in terms of how they're used and what's meant by them. So maybe first, before going further, we can talk about like what these words actually mean. So, for example, the word traumatization, I think traumatization, I think that one is fairly clear, that there's what we're looking at is where a situation begins with like an initial trauma, or where there continues based on something that's inherited, or where it's existing based on systemic factors or societal factors. The word victimization actually is not about people being victims in that sort of pejorative sense, as much as it refers to the repeated process by which individuals or groups are made to feel powerless and are subjected to harm, injustice, or control by others. Resilience in this case refers to the ability to survive and cope. It's not always in a positive form. It could be maladaptive resilience, which could take the form, for example, like the example that I gave of this particular place. It could take the form of excessive drinking or other types of coping mechanisms. And so people just making it through. And then what follows that form of resilience is getting by and surviving. It's not a negative experience of life, just to be really careful about that, but it doesn't mean that there's necessarily a sense of flourishing or of thriving. So that's a little bit of the cycle that we see, and it's a cycle that actually can continue generation after generation, which is where it becomes really important to be aware of both trauma and intergenerational trauma, what it means to then respond to this in communities. And I think the next part that we'd really love to point to is what happens, what could be possible if we actually start to pay attention to bringing a trauma, an awareness of trauma, and bringing trauma-informed practice into addressing the trauma that's in our society. So Alexis, I think that might be the next slide. So for us, it really, really starts with awareness, an awareness of trauma, its impact, the understanding of the historical context, an acknowledgement of personal connection. This is where like really having insights into how things are perpetuated, and also having awareness of the resources that are present within oneself and present within our community are really, really, really important. There's also the reestablishing or building of agency, and really creating a sense of agency as a fundamental means for acting. And this creates a sense, the point of this is creating an empowered sense of safety, a sense of an ability for people to use their voice, and really the ability for people to shape their narrative. So this can come in many different forms. And again, just to emphasize, these are cycles. So what it means is we can go through a number of cycles where there's increased awareness, more agency, more resilience, more thriving, all of which can lead to even more awareness of places where there's things that need to be addressed, even more agency. And so the idea is that there's just an ongoing cycle that allows people to move more and more towards well-being and thriving. So that for us is really the possibility that we see in terms of making an intervention that takes into account both trauma more generally, but particularly as it passes down generation after generation, addressing intergenerational trauma, which is really sitting behind many of the big social issues that we see today in the world. So how do we go from vicious to virtual cycles? Alexis, I love the question that's there. What does it take? And so we were, our friends at Georgetown call this the triple infinity loop. I do suspect there might have been some Marvel inspiration in this. I'm saying that very tongue in cheek. But this is really about working at multiple levels. Jacinda, I take it that's a good thing, what you've just written in the chat. Yes, super. I'll take it as good things. Super, thanks. So for us, what we're trying to really promote here is that it's important to work at all of these different levels together in order to really bring about that shift from vicious cycle to virtuous cycle. I think the individual piece is the piece that we're all, or almost everyone in the call, is aware of. So the individual piece is really, how do we address and heal our own trauma, the trauma that we carry within us? And that's through therapeutic approaches, other approaches that might be present, ancestral wisdom, a whole range of different forms. The individual part is really, really important, but by itself is not enough for true communal healing. And so what we want to really, oops, sorry, I've just got, not sure why. Sorry, my computer is bugging. Okay, there we go. So the second part of this is really looking at how we address this at a communal level. And for us, the communal level is, how do we actually begin to talk about this, about the experiences that have happened? How do we heal in an interdependent way? Part of that is the recreation of narrative. Part of that is the recreation of relationship, or the healing of relationship. Part of that is that we also look at community healing practices that can only happen as a community, that allow us to shift a number of things, including at the individual level. And then finally, there's the systemic level. Now, systemic is a bit of an interesting one, which is partly much more, it can be at a city level, a national level. That one can be at times more symbolic or policy oriented, that can support the communal and the individual. I use the word symbolic, but symbolism really, really matters. The acknowledgement of things that are happening at other levels, the idea of really acknowledging, the idea of providing ongoing supports for space to be created for individual, communal, and systemic healing. There's a part there where really holding the space at that level for all of these different levels to unfold becomes really important. And in many different ways, like this triple infinity loop is really what we're trying to get out there as a framework for understanding this work, that it's not just an intervention at the individual level or the communal or at the systemic, but that all of these have to go together in order to be able to address intergenerational trauma in ways that can then bring about true healing, and then build much more agency, and then ultimately build both individual, communal, societal thriving, and well-being. So I think that actually takes us, Alexis, I'm not sure why I have this open for like
the marker.
Yeah. There we go.
Can you see the next slide?
I can now. Yeah. So these are some of the concepts that we think are really, really important in terms of how to make sense of this at each of the different levels. I think the other thing to say is that the concept of fractal is really, really important with trauma. What we see at the individual level carries through in a fractal way at the communal level, carries through at the systemic level. And so what we're suggesting here are lenses to bring to the exploration of understanding the presence and the addressing of intergenerational trauma by valuing all of the things that you see listed here. So on one hand, the experience of trauma, and this is really like a body element, body, mind, spirit element, which is really understanding like what is the impact on body? What is the effect on safety and agency? What is the effect on voice and meaning for people as a result of the experience of trauma? There's also really valuing and honoring the context of trauma and creating space for understanding like the scope of it, the histories, the narrative, the power or powers that have been present, and then holding a lens for looking at the threads that help both with healing as well as the paths to rebuilding. And those three lenses for us are through reconnection, through accountability, and rehumanizing. We'll be sharing a lot more about the framework and the content of these lenses in our second content drop in February next year. So this is more of a stay tuned. There's more to come with this piece. And we'll be really excited to get your feedback on this as this starts to come out as well. I'm really, really glad that fractal infinity loops landed well. Thank you for that. And we have a poll. I'm a little bit terrified of this poll going up, but hopefully like it gives like there's been a little bit of a better sense of what this work that we're trying to do is about. And so maybe we can make it more a poll of that, but would love to see what everyone thinks.
Thanks, Aaron. And we just launched the poll just a moment ago, so everyone could start taking that one. We just take a moment for everyone to get their responses in. Thank you all.
And maybe while everyone finish answering the poll, we just briefly mention that tomorrow we are officially releasing this work, and we will be sharing with all of you the Intergenerational website link, so you can dive in and explore deeper everything that has been mentioned today. This initiative will go, the launch will go for 6 to 8 months, as Aaron said previously, and you will find there a lot of material, including the think tank's work, the research, the Associate Voices papers, and also a range of resources like books, academic research, webinar and podcast, art, and other type of resources. And we also really invite you to add your voice and to contribute to this collective knowledge and understanding of intergenerational trauma. Yeah, that's a little bit of call to action for all of us together. And then I see that the result.
I would love to say too, like I love all the people that shared that they wanted to learn more from this. I think it's 66%. That's fantastic. There's more to come. And also the invitation with what we're going to be sharing tomorrow and over the next 6 months is also an invitation to share all of our knowledge as well and all of our ways of practice. And part of what we'll be releasing in a few weeks is also a map so that those people who are already practicing, we can map all of us, so that that's a way also of inviting a collective community of practice around this. So please know, again, I'd really love to hold a space for this as a communal piece of work that we're all doing together.
And with that, I think we are done for the presentation of today. Thank you so much. Aaron, thank you. Silvana, thank you. And back to you, Charney. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for this insightful information. I feel like in my heart, I have so many questions and just thoughts. So I just truly, truly appreciate all that you all have shared with us at this moment. I will invite everyone, because I know this was a lot of great information, but really also commitment heavy information, to take a moment to just kind of break away. We'll be resuming the presentation in this session at 12:05. So please take the time that you need to care for your holistic well-being, whether that's getting away from your computer, going to utilize the restroom or just getting a beverage or something to feel present and to feel cared for at this moment. And then when we return, we'll be passing the mic over to Amanda from Healing by Choice. So thank you all, and please just take the time that you need. I'll see you at 5 after, depending on where you are tuning in from. Thank you all.
Hey, thank you so much to the Wellbeing Project and all the great work that you have shared and the research that you all are pulling together. Very insightful and I think supportive of people who are looking to do more healing work. Excuse me. Of course, as soon as I had to present, I'm like, oh, now I got a tickle. But welcome back, everyone. I hope your break was restorative. And if you have any teas or cozy items that you need to bring back around your space to get settled in, I welcome you to do that. And I will start sharing a bit more about Healing by Choice. So I am a part of Healing by Choice, which is a women and gender non-conforming healer of color network. We're a circle of practitioners. We work with community to do our own healing, recognizing that we're not just like some sort of expert in a hierarchy of people, but when we're doing our work in community, we are also doing our healing in that space. And we recognize that healing doesn't mean that we're not already whole. It's a practice of coming back to our true selves. So some of the work and things that you spoke of, Erin, and the Wellbeing Project team, in terms of like the traumas that we experience as we move through this thing called life, they can move us outside of our center. So things like systemic racism and war and even vicarious trauma that we're witnessing in other places where we feel the hurt of that experience. That all impacts us and can impact our self-esteem, our outlook, our well-being, our feelings. And so healing is just about releasing some of that and coming back into our center. We offer practices for self-care, community care, physical, spiritual, and emotional well-being. And that takes a lot of different forms. And so as Healing by Choice, we work specifically with groups. And so it might look like an organization calling us to do a series on stress management and releasing anxiety, or it could look like a healing justice practice space in which various practitioners will come together and like expose people to different sorts of healing modalities. And so, for instance, I'm a Reiki practitioner, which is an energy work practice that involves the laying on of hands. We might also have a massage therapist in that space and someone who reads tarot or does Tai Chi, ear acu-detox, and bring all those practices into one space so that people can heal in a communal setting as opposed to kind of like hiding away their individual work. We can do that in a communal setting. And Healing by Choice operates through a healing justice framework. And I'll share the definition here. Healing justice is a framework that identifies how we can holistically respond to and intervene on generational trauma and violence and bring collective practices that can impact and transform the consequences of oppression on our bodies, our hearts, and our minds. That comes from Kara Page and the Kindred Southern Healing Justice Collective. And we have some strong ties with Kara Page, who also came back this summer with the Healing Justice Lineages book, along with Erica Woodland. And we're doing kind of a tour, a book tour of the Healing Justice Lineages book to kind of map where we've been in terms of this framework that goes beyond this particular definition, but kind of informs that framework. And Healing by Choice has been a part of the Allied Media Conference since its inception, or well, for many years, really. I'll say since the inception of the Healing Justice practice space at Allied Media Conference, which is unfortunately no longer ongoing, but we've had really amazing experiences in that space. And again, a Healing Justice practice space looks like a communal space of healing together. And HJ is the practice of reimagining wholeness at the intersection of intergenerational trauma, current structures of oppression, and a generative and co-created future. We hold that joy and pleasure create possibility to be in right relationship with ourselves, each other, and the land. And we strive to demystify medicine and healing to make them accessible to everyone, and believe that each person is an expert of their own experience, body, and needs, so that it's necessary to address the roots of trauma and injustice for individual and collective transformation. And that is a statement from the coordinators of the 2018 Healing Justice Practice Space Track that was held at the conference. And so I think what that means to me, demystifying medicine and healing, again, bringing it out of the privacy of our own home, bringing it out of just the therapist's office, because yes, it is important to do our individual work and do our inner work, but it's also important that care is accessible in community so that we don't feel that it's something that we are needing to hide. Maybe that we, it's just like, it's not wanting to feel as if healing is some private luxury. You need to buy a therapy session, buy a spa day. And so we seek to make these things accessible and in the more public sphere. And so, like we said, we do work with groups. We'll show up at retreats, community events, and things like that. We've had many a healing justice practice space on Belle Isle. And it's just really cool to be able to do this work communally. I'm just going to pause for a moment to take a look at the chat and make sure I'm not missing anything, because I see messages. Sound therapists in the building. Whoop, whoop. Yes, that's always a beautiful practice to see. We got a Reiki practitioner in the space. Love it. Hey, y'all. Hey. All right. And I'll move us into the next slide. And so this kind of harkens back to what was shared by the Wellbeing Project, in that there are a number of steps in the healing process, right? There's a number of different lanes that this comes into. And so on an individual level, some of the things that we might do to care for ourselves include more compassionate and nurturing self-talk. So that could be mirror work, in which you are looking literally at yourself and telling yourself the good things that you need to hear. So if you are experiencing low self-esteem, around your looks, it might just be pointing out various pieces of yourself that you appreciate. Or it could look like reprogramming yourself. You've always been told that you're not good enough in this particular way. Looking yourself in the eye and expressing what is great about yourself in that lane where you've been taken down can be a beautiful practice. And then there's like everyday self-care techniques such as breathing. I'll take a moment here because I'm getting all talky, and let's do some breathing together, actually. This is a practice that I find especially useful for when your anxiety is high and you need to just settle your nervous system a little bit. And so you can get yourself good and cozy and comfy, work out any kinks, roll your shoulders, your neck. And then I'll invite us into a slow inhale deeply. And the focus with this breath is just a long exhale release. We'll do that as slow as possible. So this calming breath is really about the exhale, the release. And we can even envision as we do this, letting go of something that is weighing heavily on us and just letting it out, live outside of our bodies. And so I'll invite us into a deep breath again. And then a nice slow and full exhale. You can purse your lips like you're blowing a whistle. One more time, inhaling deeply. Exhaling fully, envisioning the dark cloud of whatever it is that is burdening you, leaving the body. Thank you. And so another aspect of healing is on a communal level, and this might look like visiting what we do in our families. So I know that many of us disciplinary practices could have looked like spankings, corporal punishment, and thinking through like, what is the reasoning behind how that came to be? What impact does it actually have? And there's a lot of research these days about corporal punishment and the impacts on a child's like self-esteem and behavior and trust relationship with the parents. And so reconsidering that, and even outside of corporal punishment, the yelling and the like aggravation that can be experienced from parent to child, we might take some time to first settle our own selves, right? Finding some of these techniques that work for us, whether that looks like taking a long walk, walking away from a high stress situation for a moment, things like that, so that we can resettle our own nervous systems and not pass that same heightened anxiety and stress onto our children. So reconsidering disciplinary practices is a great way to practice communal healing and address the intergenerational trauma that we experience. And then there's thinking about our family structures and traditions. Are there things that we want to build as practices that help us to connect with our families, traditions that we want to build? Because I think, it's not all about getting rid of things. Sometimes it's about what we're bringing in. And so we want to have family dinners, things like that. And I'm actually just curious if there's any sorts of traditions in your own families that folks would like to share in the chat that you find healing. Ooh, yeah. Retelling of stories. That's a beautiful practice. Like hearing from I don't know, hearing from my grandparents is always like a really beautiful experience of just like hearing about their youth and what they were up to. um, and just feeling connected to an older generation than my own. We have sleepovers. Yeah. Great opportunity to connect and just like really spend quality and intentional time. Taking a random walk. Love that. Yes. Just getting out into nature, having a walk together. Closing and goodbye ceremonies. That's beautiful. I wonder if that has to do with like end of life. Or I guess even it could apply to like if someone's moving, making space just to like share love and gratitude for what they have brought and wish them well in the next journey. And that could apply to many different areas. Got someone who does daily self Reiki before going to bed. That's a beautiful self-love practice. Yes. Family dinners and walks with my dad. Yeah. That's so cute. I love to hear it. Cooking together. Yeah, there's a lot of family traditions around food because what better way? Like we have to nourish ourselves multiple times a day. What better way than an opportunity to come together? Singing with family, friends, and community. Gorgeous. Yes, and we have singing again. Yeah. I scrolling is taking a struggle because we got so many good things coming in. Breathing exercises and anything that has to do with can't seem to get it sensory to stay grounded and present. Absolutely. Texting my children in college scriptural passages, etc. That's lovely. My mom used to do that. So nice just to receive a message of care and like knowing that someone is thinking about you and wishing you well. Going through the photo albums for the 1,000th time. Yes. And that's such a good opportunity to tell stories too. It's like, oh, what was happening in this picture? Oh, that was, you know, grandma's old house, or here we were at such and such place, and talking through the stories of that time. Highs and lows with our family dinner. Okay, yeah, like intentional checking in during this quality time. So sharing a high, something that's good for the day, a low, something we could improve. And that invites time for self-reflection too. Well, each family member, you know how you can support them in getting through the days. Yeah, and you can have some self-reflection in that, and then also receive like advice or input if you like. Onions and orchids. Y'all have some really beautiful practices. Love to hear it. Yeah, so keeping those traditions alive, building new ones that feel healthy for you. And this doesn't have to just be with your family. This could be with your, it doesn't have to be with your like blood relatives. It could be with your chosen family, your chosen communities, people that you are looking to build deep relationship with. And communal care. I like what you said about the checking in. And that might happen for you over dinner, but in other spaces, like in a work setting, in your organizational space, starting a meeting with check-ins and allowing people to share how they are in a given moment, and actually like listening to each other and being able to express is really important. And then speaking of which, we have another comment about weekly check-ins with my partner to make sure, each other feel supported and cared for. That's beautiful. Yes. What can I do to support you in this moment? Yeah, that's some ways to bring communal care into a space. Oops. And then in terms of like this next point says re-energizing our communities, but it also kind of speaks to the systemic area too, that the Wellbeing Project mentioned of care. Making more sustainable practices, making sure that we're taking care of the land that nourishes us, building a conscious economy, supporting businesses and activities that are supportive of humanity, right? Creating new cultures and building neighborhoods and ways of being that are congruent with the land as opposed to just like extractive. And a lot of these things are supportive of the individual and the collective. So we'll move into another little practice here, a practice for self-compassion, and there's a resource on this in the resource section that you'll receive from the slides. But we'll start with just giving ourselves some love, and we'll do a little self-hug situation here. So you can just take a moment, you can be on or off camera, and we'll just give ourselves a hug. And this is actually a practice of co-regulation too. And so you can do this by yourself as a self-love and nurturing practice. And if you're in a space with another group or another person that you're comfortable with, when you hug yourself and hum, it's kind of like an emotional co-regulation situation. You hum low and deep into your chest. And I'm going to go on mute for the sake of not making strange noises on the recording, but I'm just going to give us maybe 20 seconds to do this. And 20 seconds can feel like a long time when you're feeling a little awkward, but that's okay. And I'm just curious if anyone wants to share how that feels for you. Give it a moment. Your hug and hum, how did that feel for you? Cozy and joyful, yes. Refreshing, lovely, safe and warm. Yes, it was and is always great to appreciate and love on myself. Ashe. Great, great grandma loving on me. That's beautiful. And, you know, I think of it as like we are our ancestors, right? All of the people who came before us make up us, and their DNA lives on within us. And that's kind of part of the reason why epigenetics is a thing. Like your mother had all the cells that she was ever going to have when she like created you and her mother had her cells. And so you're just like going back many generations. And so hugging yourself is kind of like reconnecting to ancestors you may or may not have even known. Yes, we are future ancestors, ancestors in training. Sometimes we forget we need our own affection too, so it feels comforting. Ashe. Beautiful. That was so insightful and lovely. Okay. And then I'll give us just like a moment to do this scripting practice as well. Maybe when I say a moment, I mean maybe 3 minutes. Just to really tap into what's going on internally. And this is something that you can do when you're experiencing like a hard feeling, you're needing to create safety for yourself, and just get grounded in the present moment. Yeah. And so you'll see the script up on the screen. And sometimes people actually do this with like EFT, the emotional freedom, like tapping technique, but we'll just do the scripting part. So script 1 says, it's hard to feel blank right now, but feeling blank is a part of the human experience. What can I do to make myself happier in this moment? Script 2, may I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be kind to myself. I accept myself as I am. Sorry for the typo. This is a moment of suffering. This is script 3. Suffering is a part of life. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion I need. And so I'll give us a few moments to reflect on what it is that we're feeling and acknowledging that that feeling is a part of the human experience. And so this is kind of like a loving awareness practice, as opposed to judging the feelings that we're having, just allowing. And we'll take this moment now. And so you may just want to get grounded and feel into your body and into your emotions. And if you have a pen or pencil or writing utensil, you can use that, or you can just hold this in your mind. And I will cease talking and let us do our scripting practice for the next 2 minutes. We'll just wrap up in about 20 seconds. Let you wrap up any thoughts you're having. Thank you so much for taking this time and attention for yourself. And if you would, I welcome you to share if there's anything that you would like to share in terms of the question of what can I do to make myself happier in this moment. I won't ask you to share your hard feeling, but if there was anything that came to you in terms of what can I do to make myself happier in this moment. And I don't know, that question as written, I don't know, it feels a little odd to me because you don't always have to be happy, of course. You can maybe be happier than you were, but maybe what is something I can do to feel more at ease in this moment might be a reframing of that question. And then I invite you to share some of those things so that we can help build toolkits with each other. Because you might have something that brings you more easefulness that another person might find really practical and useful. And actually, I welcome you to either come off mute or share in the chat. I think that's fine.
Hi, Amanda. This is Lacey. Thank you so much for doing all this cool, kind of relaxing stuff that we always think about and need and sometimes don't take advantage of. But I think one of the things that is very helpful for me in any moment where I'm feeling weird is the breathing, because we take such shallow breaths throughout the day, like we're saving them for something or conserving them for something, and they're free. They're totally free and easy to get. But breathing deeply whenever I feel anxious or if I just need to relax is always good. So I would say for me, it would be just taking those deep breaths randomly all the time throughout the day. So thank you.
Thank you, Lacey. That was beautiful. What you said about we take these shallow breaths as if we're like saving our breaths for something. That was really powerful to me. You know, what we have is this moment, and we have our bodies and our lungs in this moment, and we can use them to their full capacity. That's beautiful. And actually, a number of people shared taking a deep breath. We also have hydrating, prayer, taking walks. And I'm probably going to miss some of these because we got so many going, and I'm like, I end up missing some while I scroll, but utilizing the long and short-term benefits provided by your workplace. Yes, take a mental health sabbatical, okay? Like take those PTO days, take a random day off if you need to. You don't have to like have a plan already. Sometimes just loving on you is the plan. Beautiful. Acknowledging common humanity is so key. It corrects the sense that I can develop that no one else feels this way, or I'm the only one who deals with this. Yes. We're all going through things, and sometimes checking in just to check on that common humanity is good too, just to hear from other people and be able to share with other people. Blowing bubbles. I love blowing bubbles. That's a breathing exercise. That's beautiful. I make my own solution. Yeah, that's so cool. And let the bubble machine blow it on the floor and mop it on up. That's cool. 20. Every 20 minutes, shift eyesight from the computer and look 20, I'm not sure what empties away is, but away for 20 seconds. Yeah, taking that moment to like expand your vision outward beyond the screen is really important. Take a deep breath in. Listen to or play music, Ashe. Oh, meters. 20 meters away. Okay, thank you. Forgive myself and others. Yeah, like the Ho'oponopono practice where they say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Or I love you, please forgive me. I'm sorry, I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me. Well, okay, I'm not remembering it in this moment, but it is a forgiveness practice if you ever want to look up the Hawaiian Ho'oponopono practice. Beautiful. Y'all have some wonderful things going. And I love that for you. Love that for us. And I just want to encourage us to bring these things into the public sphere too. You know, like we can share our practices and we can do them together. So maybe it looks like having a little break in a meeting where you have a dance break. That's always fun. Listen to a bit of music, do some collective stretching, maybe have a walking meeting as opposed to being seated. Charnay mentioned that the other day, and I thought that was really cool. Beautiful. Spin in circles, gets the cerebral spinal fluid and lymph fluid swooshing around. Yeah, get in motion, our inners and our outers. That's gorgeous. And this is just a moment to for us to consider what practices we might bring into our own daily experience. Like people have expressed a lot of really cool things here. And I won't actually ask you to input these, but you might want to take a moment to write down some things. I think it's really important to make a plan for ourselves when we are experiencing hard moments, because in those hard moments, it can feel like everything is bad and wrong. And what can I possibly do to fix it, right? Because you get all overwhelmed and your nervous system's out of wire, you're in fight or flight or fawn or freeze or any of those things. And so creating a kind of wellness plan for ourselves can be really cool to do. A little set of practices that we might look to, and you can post them up somewhere too. You could write them on a little Post-it note and put it by your desk or in your kitchen, etc. Yes, thank you, Nanda. I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you. That's the Ho'oponopono practice. And you repeat that a number of times. It is not a practice I do regularly, so I can't like lead anyone through it in this moment, but I appreciate you sharing the premise. Anywho, I was just saying, creating a kind of toolkit for ourselves can be really useful. And also we can share that with people too. If you've heard of the practice of pod mapping that I think came out of the Bay Area Transformative Justice Collective, that is something you do where you kind of like put yourself in the center of a circle and outline things and people around you that you can call on in a moment of harm or distress. People use them for different things. for transformative justice, it might look like having your circle, your like inner circle of people who can support you if you've gone through a harmful experience. And then maybe a second group of circle. It's like, I'm not quite as close to these people, but like, if my first group isn't available, I can reach out and maybe help to build that relationship. And then a third outer circle might be community spaces, like a church or a group that you're a part of that you can call on for support. And so you can build those types of things when you're not in crisis mode, so that when crises kind of are inevitably going to come up, you have that available to yourself, and you can share those actually with people. We did some pod mapping when I was a part of Black Youth Project 100 and kept those on file for each other. So it's like, okay, if something goes down, who are the people to call for so-and-so? And you just already have that knowledge, and you can do that with your loved ones too. It could be people to call, it can be practices to turn to. And that's one way of bringing like the communal healing aspect in, so that a person doesn't have to figure it all out on their own when they're going through a crisis, because it's really challenging to do that. Anywho, so I encourage folks to build out our pod maps so that we know what are we going to do in moments of maybe mental health crises or moments of just like high stress. And then you can also do that in terms of, you can do a physical well-being pod map. Anything you want it to look like, it's up to you. But just wanted to throw that into the space. It could be a little care kit that you put together for yourself and that you can share with your loved ones who you trust to support you. And with that, I will just leave space for any last questions or sharings that folks have before I hand it back to Charnay. Anything that you would like to know from me or in regards to healing by choice or just about care practices in general, you can throw that on in the chat if you'd like.
I definitely want to chime in and just express my gratitude, Amanda, for being able to create our own toolbox of all of these resources. And thanks so much, everyone, for sharing your own practices. I think I'm doing a lot of reflection too, like, oh, that was good. Oh, that was good. I need to also add these to my own list. And I'm just so excited and grateful for the opportunity to adopt these and have just got so much expanded knowledge and awareness. So thank you. And thank you for leading us through some of these actual practices, because sometimes it can be challenging where we're like, oh, how do we find the time? But to be actually able to take this time to learn and listen and practice, it's beautiful. And I would like to, right now, I'm going to actually share the screen to share some resources that were also uplifted. But before doing that, I also want to just open the floor again if there are any questions for whether it was Amanda or any of our friends from the Wellbeing Project too, because I know there's been like a great amount of information shared. So please feel free to come off mute or drop it in the chat if you have any question based off of anything that was shared today. Okay, and I see a raised hand. Please feel free to come off mute and share.
Hi, this is Rashawn Foster. Thank you so much. This is a great session. Really enjoyed all of the information. I have a question for the Wellbeing Project. Is there a significant difference between ancestral healing and intergenerational healing?
Thank you for the question, Rashawn. And I hope I'm pronouncing that the right way.
Rashawn, yes.
Thank you. So I don't know how to answer your question, actually. We focused more on intergenerational healing, which is now forward. And the question that you're asking about ancestral healing, to me, I wonder if they're not overlaps. And it makes me curious. So that feels like the answer that's present for me. And I think what we can do is take that question away and explore it and come back, if that makes sense.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes. And the reason why I asked is because there was a moment in time where I heard the word auction and I blurted something out that I didn't realize that I blurted out at a workspace. And so I'm just curious, like when we talk about epigenetic memory and memory being stored in a person's psyche, do the ancestors come and speak on their behalf through a person? So that's where that's what generated that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashawn, for your question and just still being able to give voice to a thought that was on your mind, and definitely some things for us to continue to consider. So thank you so much for that insight. Are there any other questions or thoughts? I'm not seeing anything in the chat yet, but please feel free to come off mute if there are any specific questions. And as you may be thinking or processing, because definitely, again, a lot of information and exciting because it's still just the beginning and so much to kind of come forward in the future. But definitely would like you to keep in mind these resources as well. We'll be happy to share some of this information out via follow-up email as well, where you can get kind of more digging into it, whether it's looking through the book recommendation that was listed or through the podcast or any of the other reports that are currently reflected on the screen. So please feel free to keep these in mind. And looks like a comment, but definitely say the ancestors can speak through the current generation. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you.
When will you all follow up with this series?
So on behalf of COAC, so we have our Nonprofit Wellbeing Series. That's a quarterly program. So this is our actual last one. Wonderful way to end for 2023. But we are actually hosting another session in March of 2024. The information will be coming soon, but I can kind of tease that will be featuring Desiree Attaway, and she's going to be leading a session on time is a neutral and really just talking about time, power in the workplace. So this is open to all organizations. It will be open virtually, so please feel free to come through. I'll be sharing more resources and information on that. But at this time too, would like to open it if any of our partners, friends want to also kind of share what's next for the Wellbeing Project or Healing by Choice, or how people can stay plugged into your work.
I think we're all being really polite, letting everyone else go first. I would say that you could definitely follow Healing by Choice on Instagram or Facebook or both, and find upcoming events and things where we tend to collaborate with different groups who are wanting to bring healing space into either their workplace or their community space. And you can also reach out if you're interested in that, finding ways to say ground or have a retreat for your folks. You can definitely reach out to us, but we tend to be most current on what we are doing through our social medias.
Charnay, thank you for hosting us. And Amanda, it's been awesome to do this alongside you. And then thank you to everyone that tuned in for today. It's just been wonderful to be present with this community in so many different ways. And we look forward to continuing to get waves of feedback as we go along. So really, hopefully this is just the beginning or a continuation of a dialogue that's been happening over the last 3 years. Looking forward to more.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much again. And it's been a true pleasure. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your week, and please stay tuned for more information to come. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much, and take care, everybody.
Take care. Peace, y'all.